Ladies and gentlemen, today our national anthem will be sung by Tommy Lenihan. Please rise. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light was so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight over ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land and of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you, Tommy. Our invocation today will be from Father Robert Casey. And Father Casey informed me this morning that this is his 20th time being at our Vietnam ceremony. Father Casey.
I had here at the first one, so let us pray. God, our Father, we ask your blessing upon us today as we remember and honor our servicemen that died in Vietnam. We honor and remember also all those men and women who have lost their lives safeguarding our freedoms and assuring peace throughout the world. As we honor these brave soldiers who gave their life for our country and this community, we pledge never to forget, and we promise to do all in our power to promote peace throughout the world. We are mindful today, Lord, of all those men and women serving here in our country and around the world in harm's way. We ask, Lord, watch over them, protect them, and bring them safely home. As we gather today, let our prayer be one of peace for our world, our country, and our community and our homes, and above all, for peace in our hearts. We ask this in God's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Please take your seats. First, let me say thank you all for wearing your masks today and for keeping the social distancing as we conduct the program. Good morning, and welcome to the 39th anniversary of the South Boston Vietnam Memorial. On behalf of the Vietnam Memorial Committee, Tom Irwin, Jerry Turner, George Egan, Harry Carroll, and the South Boston Vietnam veterans who surround this fence, thank you for joining us. When we marched into this park and surrounded this memorial for the first time 39 Septembers ago, we were young and filled with a passion to honor what is so special and unique about this community. 25 South Boston men in the full flower of their youth, 25 friends, brothers, sons, made the ultimate sacrifice for our country at a time when our country seemed to lose sight of what the sacrifice of that blood and treasure truly meant. Vietnam was not a so-called good war, yet we, the men who went off to fight there and were fortunate enough to make it home, we knew that our bravery was no less resolute. Our courage was no less heroic than the sacrifice made by our fathers in World War II. So we took it upon ourselves to remember. But we did something much more than that as well. Indeed, what the nation witnessed on that Sunday, September 13th, 1981, was a singular faith, uncommon friendship, and a deep abiding loyalty that we here in South Boston have for this country, and perhaps more profoundly for each other. What we did on that day wasn't happening anyplace else in America. We were the first to say to the brothers and sisters we lost in Vietnam that your sacrifice would never be forgotten, and your death will never be in vain. And in fact, the devotion we showed and the tribute we paid our friends helped to trigger the creation of the long overdue memorials to our neighbors who served, fought, and died in Korea and World War II. Almost 4 decades later, I look around this park and see familiar faces who kept the faith, who've joined us through the years to keep the promise we made, and most importantly, to maintain a tradition of devotion that speaks to the true heart and soul of this community. All of which brings me to the thought, or perhaps a hope, I would like to leave to you today. We were young men when we gathered here for the first time. Our children were still children. In the passage of time, we've watched them grow old, have children of their own, and in some cases go off to war, like my son Todd. We are a good deal older now. We've lost too many friends who made that first trek up East Broadway with us. So much about the neighborhood we grew up in, the one we left to go to Vietnam, the one we came back to, has changed. A house is no longer a house anymore. It's an investment, a piece of property that you may even get a couple of parking spots. And yet, some things about South Boston haven't changed. They remain true, like the moment we share today and have shared for 39 years. I want very much to believe that the tradition of remembrance we established through the years is one of those shining truths that makes South Boston a special place. This year, I end my remarks with a plea. I direct it not to all those familiar faces who have gathered here for 39 years, but to all the new faces who are as young as we were when we came here for the first time. Someday, you will inherit this sacred community tradition, the very best of what South Boston is about, the essence of our heart and soul. Cherish it as we have tried to. Keep the faith with those 10 words at the bottom of our stone. If you forget my death, then I died in vain. Because those words do not speak to what this community once was. They speak to who we are, and God willing, will always be. God bless you, and God bless you, America. Thanks again for being here today. I am honored to introduce our guest of honor this morning, General Stanley McChrystal, United States Army retired. The son and grandson of Army officers, General McChrystal graduated from West Point in 1976 as an infantry officer, completed Ranger training and other special forces training. Over the course of his career, he has held leadership and staff positions in the Army Special Forces, Army Rangers, 82nd Airborne Division, the 18th Army Air Corps, and the Joint Staff. He is a graduate of the U.S. Naval War College and completed fellowships at Harvard John F. Kennedy School of Government in 1997 and in the Council on Foreign Relations in 2000. From 2003 to 2008, General McChrystal commanded JSOC, responsible for leading the nation's deployed military counterterrorism efforts around the globe. His leadership of JSOC is credited with the 2003 capture of Saddam Hussein, and in 2006, locating and killing Abu Musab al-Zawahiri, the leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq. In June 2009, General McChrystal received his 4th star and assumed command of all international forces in Afghanistan. A transformative leader with a remarkable record of achievement, General Stanley McChrystal was called one of America's greatest warriors by Secretary of Defense Robert Gates. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome General Stanley McChrystal.
I knew a man once. He was a son of a soldier, and so decided to become a soldier himself. As a young infantry officer, he went to Korea and fought in the bitter hill fights. He came home from that war with a Silver Star and an understanding of what war actually is. By 1965, he was a 41-year-old lieutenant colonel with a wife named Mary, 6 children, a disreputable dog. But he went again, this time to Vietnam. And he served as an infantry battalion commander. And then after that tour, went back again 2 years later. Like countless other family members, Mary held the family together, which was never easy. 18 months after his second tour ended, now a young brigadier general, the man lost Mary suddenly to an unexpected illness. And at age 45, he lost the love of his life, was left with 6 children, and the pressures of a career. He struggled. And by 1974, he'd almost lost his battle with alcohol and with life. I knew another man. He was the son and grandson of soldiers. He'd been lucky enough to go to college, and there he'd played baseball, and he'd played it very well. He was drafted by the New York Mets, but he'd made a commitment to go into the Army. He became an infantry officer, and he deployed, instead of on the fields of a baseball stadium, to the rice paddies of Vietnam. A year after, he returned, a bit disillusioned, and left the Army. The first man I described was my father, who until the day he died was my hero. Happily, after the low point I described in 1974, he rebounded, and he lived alcohol-free, happily, for another 40 years. On the day he died, 4 of his grandsons were serving in Afghanistan. The second man I described was my brother, my older brother. A few years after leaving the Army, he came back in as an infantryman again. And then he decided that he had a calling and became a chaplain. And for the last 21 years of his 31-year Army career, he served as an Army chaplain. His son recently finished commanding the same Ranger battalion that I'd been lucky enough to command. A final story. On Christmas Eve 2009, I was in Afghanistan. And as most commanders do, you try to visit as many of your soldiers as you can. So with 2 helicopters, we flew around from small base to small base. Many of them very, very remote. And one of the bases we landed late into the evening had about a platoon of U.S. Army forces and a slightly smaller group of Afghan forces. It looked like a Beau Geste fort with a big mud wall around it and bunkers to defend it. And it was a cold night. My command sergeant major and I, my call, we went into the compound and we wanted to meet and talk to soldiers. As usual, when a senior officer and the command sergeant major come in, the soldiers were a little bit reticent, standoffish at first. And then after a few minutes, you make the offer, hey, tell us what's going on, and would anybody like to take a picture together? And that breaks the ice. And pretty soon we started taking pictures and swapping stories with young soldiers. And then suddenly I froze. Because about 6 feet in front of me, there was a young soldier, private first class, with a unique name. On the name tape of his combat uniform, it said Langmack. I stared at him for a moment, and he wasn't fighting his way to get to the front and talk. He was just there. And I walked over to him, and I asked him if his father had been a soldier. And he nodded and said that he had. And then I asked if his father had been a ranger. And he said that he had. And his father had been a ranger with me years before. And then his father had gone to Delta Force and become a Delta Force commando, operator. And in May 2005, under my command, Steve Langmack was killed near Al-Qaim in Iraq. I knew Steve's wife, Rachel. Annie and I both did. And we knew who his son was, but he was much younger when we had known him. And suddenly in this remote base, I see a young man who's made the decision to serve. Like Vietnam, Afghanistan was not a popular war. He made the decision to go where he didn't have to go and do what he didn't have to do. He asked for and got no great accolades for it. But for me, when I see that kind of commitment at a young age, it's humbling. Vietnam, like all wars, isn't what? When somebody asks me, what was the Vietnam War? I think the question's wrong. The question is, who was the Vietnam War? It's a tapestry of faces, of towering heroism, but more often just simple service, simple sacrifice, simple willingness to step forward when the nation asks and your comrades need it. Wars aren't fought by giants. They're fought by ordinary men and women. That's what makes the story, your story, so much more impressive and humbling for all of us to hear. From one former soldier to others, thank you for your service. From one American to others, well done. God bless.
Thank you, General. General, on behalf of the Vietnam veterans who circle this memorial, please accept a small token of our appreciation for being here today. I want to take a moment just to introduce, to acknowledge some of the folks that have taken the time to be here today with us. My former boss, former ambassador and mayor of the city of Boston, Ray Flynn. Major Dan Whaler, United States Marine Corps commanding officer for recruiting in the area. Commissioner Rob Santiago, City of Boston's Veteran Services Department, Commissioner Ryan Woods from the Boston Parks Department, who has been so great to us over the last couple of weeks. Also, I want to recognize and thank a friend, District Attorney Rachel Rollins. Thank you for being with us. Rachel's dad was a Navy corpsman and served in Vietnam. I want to thank the Boston Police Department, Fire Department, the Greater Boston Firefighters Pipes and Drums, the Color Guards from the 215th National Guard, the Color Guard Marine Corps from Marine Recruiting, and a special thanks to our ground crew led by Captain Bob Lenahan and our Vietnam veterans who, over the years, have really taken this memorial and made it what it is today. So thank you all for being here. I would like to now introduce our governor, Charlie Baker, who has been here every year since he's been governor. I love saying that because he's the only governor that has ever taken the time to be with us in September. And once again, he's here with us today. And because of Governor Baker's commitment in wanting to do something to Vietnam veterans, all of the Vietnam veterans today will receive a book, A Time to Honor, which celebrates the 50th commemoration of the ending of the Vietnam War. But what's really special to me is in the book, there's a picture of the back of our memorial that has all 5 insignias of our service, but also it has to all the men and women who served during the Vietnam War, and 4-inch letters, welcome home. So, Governor, on behalf of the Vietnam veterans here today, thank you for this. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Baker.
Can we give Tom Lyons the round of applause that he deserves? General John Kelly, who's had some pretty big jobs over the years, but certainly knows a lot about Massachusetts and about the military, said that Tom Lyons is the most important and influential corporal in U.S. military service. So when I try to think about how to put Vietnam and all it was and still is into a single thought, I always come back to what Myra McPherson said about it in her book in 1984, which is that above all, Vietnam was a war that was asked everything of a few and nothing of most in America. And I happen to think more than any other observation, that one truly captures what that conflict was all about. And because of that, for the first time, it created some fissures in our national psyche and became, for all intents and purposes, a time and a war that is still, to this day, influencing the way people think about themselves, about conflict, and about this country. And it was the first time, because of that notion, that those who served were a small band of committed Americans in a conflict that was never declared fundamentally to be a war. It created a split between those who were engaged in that conflict and the folks back home. And because of the nature of the way the leadership in Washington dealt with what was going on the ground there, it created for the first time a very obvious and significant split between the political leadership in this country and the guys on the ground doing the fighting. And along the way, because of that split, it also created for the first time a really significant divide between the media that was covering the battles and the war and the conflict and what was going on in South and North Vietnam and the federal government. But you know who bore the brunt of all of those fissures, all of those conflicts, all of those splits in our national unity, in our national psyche? The folks along this fence and the thousands of others who had chosen to serve and to put themselves in the theater of combat and harm's way. General, by the way, thank you so much for being here, for your service, for your family service, and for your comments, and especially your comments about these folks and their fellow soldiers. I watched a movie on Amazon Prime the other day. And I'm not advertising Amazon or Amazon Prime. I just couldn't find it anywhere else because Tom Lyons told me to. And it was called Dateline Saigon. It was about the first couple of years of the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Now, it's mostly about the conflict between the media on the ground that was covering the war, which at that point was a conflict or a skirmish or whatever word you like, and the folks in D.C. But as I watched it, another very important and powerful message came through. Why so many young people like the ones on this stone and the ones on this fence chose to step up and serve? Because in this movie, time and time again, John F. Kennedy, President John F. Kennedy, Massachusetts' son, John F. Kennedy, stood up and talked over and over again about the importance of restraining the growth of communism in Southeast Asia and the national commitment that this country needed to make to ensure a free people in South Vietnam and across Southeast Asia. There was the why, ladies and gentlemen, about why so many people signed up and went off to war. Because to them, our national leadership believed and communicated that this was a critical element in preserving democracy and freedom in other parts of the world. Is there a more glorious or worthwhile rationale for these folks and these men to sign up, put on a uniform, put themselves in harm's way? But nobody had their backs except the guy on either side of them. And in the fight and the skirmish, and the debate and the discussion, and the dismay and the discouragement and the anger that came with all the stuff that played out over the course of the next 10 years, was all aimed at the folks on the ground. Now, that Myra McPherson quote I gave you was issued in 1984, 10 years after the end of the conflict. And we still debate and discuss what happened and why today. And it took years to reconcile everything that came out of that. And everybody talks many times about the lessons of Vietnam, and when they talk about that, they talk about military strategy and global conflict. But I think the lessons were far more profound and personal. The biggest lesson: separate the war from the warrior. And I happen to believe, thankfully, that is one lesson this country has learned. So, General, when you talk about the issues associated with what people think or don't think about Afghanistan, be very hard-pressed to find a lot of people in this country who don't honor and thank the folks who put the uniform on to serve. People have figured out how to separate that. The second is to honor and respect those who do put on the uniform and put themselves in harm's way. And the third, and in some respects maybe the most important of all, is when you see them and when they come home, we say, welcome home. Over and over and over. That's what we say. Welcome home. Thank you for your service. And as someone who saw this whole thing play out with the older brothers and sisters of my friends and their parents, time and time again, I wish we had figured out the lessons of Vietnam a lot sooner, because we would have saved you and so many of your colleagues and their families and the families of these individuals here the trauma that came from misunderstanding, a lack of appreciation, and the discouragement and dismay and dislocation in some cases that so many of you went through. And that's why this ground is so important. Because in 1981, long before anybody else was truly appreciating just what had happened, and the missed opportunity that we'd had as a country to respect and treat and recognize and honor these folks who went off on a noble cause when it all began. The folks in South Boston stood up. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to Tommy and to those who did, and to all of the folks who came after them, who recognized and understood that service is service. And that the folks on the ground are not, more often than not, the ones who should bear the consequences of dismay, distrust, and anger that come with political debate and conflict and decisions that are made somewhere else. So welcome home, welcome home, welcome home, and God bless and thank you.
Thank you, Governor Baker. It's my pleasure now to introduce our mayor, Marty Walsh. As the mayor makes his way up here, I just want to let folks know how appreciative we are of what he has been able to do, not only helping us here at our memorial, but across the city when it comes to our veterans. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marty Walsh.
Thank you very much, Tom. And I want to thank Tom for the incredible work he does. To everyone here today, to Congressman Lynch, and your support and what you do every day as well in the United States Congress, to Governor Baker, to General McChrystal, who is a friend, and to his wife that joined us today. I want to give a special thanks to General McChrystal. In the very beginning of the COVID crisis, we reached out to General McChrystal and his team, and he and his team helped us in our response here to the COVID-19 crisis in Boston. And I know Tim Lynch from his team is here and some other folks. So, General, thank you very much for all the support you have to our city, to our great city. To all the elected officials, Councilor Baker, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Flaherty, District Attorney Rawlings, Representative Beal, Senator Collins, Mayor Flynn, I know it's the ambassador, but Mayor Flynn, thank you very much. General Dunford, thank you as well, and to all the servicemen and women that are here today, active and retired, thank you so much. This is clearly a very emotional morning. I think it's emotional for a lot of reasons. I think it's emotional because General McChrystal told a very personal story about his family and the service to our country, and the service that, and Governor Baker spoke about it, the people. So many men and women put country before themselves, as all of you have today. And I think that in the governor's remarks, in all of what's going on in society, we lose sight of that. Whether we lose sight of it for a moment or we lose sight of it for a while, and it's important that we don't. Today we're here to honor the memory of the service of 25 brave men from the South Boston neighborhood. I was talking to the general the other day. He was in my office Friday, and he said to me, we're talking about you, Tommy, we're talking about Southie, and I said, he said, I'm going to keep my remarks brief. I said, well, let me talk to you about Southie. It's a unique place. It's tight-knit. It backs each other up. It never forgets. It's not afraid. It's courageous. And it never leaves anyone alone. And I was explaining that to him because we have neighborhoods all across America, and quite honestly, not many are like this community. Tommy talked a little bit about the value of real estate and property, and we understand that today. But at the end of the day, when you look around, it's about community. The servicemen and women in our country throughout history are a community. The members of the Vietnam War, the servicemen and women, you're a community. You've never forgotten the 25 names here. You don't just recognize them today. I know that you think about them and talk about them throughout the year. And you've done that for a long time. So I just want to, as the governor said, I want a special thank you to Tommy and the organizers that bring us together every single year. And this year's a little more difficult. It's difficult times right now. And I want to thank you for that. Because I know that means a lot to the families and friends of the fallen heroes that are here today. It shows them that their loved ones will never be forgotten. I know on the periphery here, there's some new people. When I say new, you're kind of new to Southie. You might be living here for a couple of years, and you might have moved in, and you love the neighborhood, and you love the parks, and you love the shops, and you love the feel of the community. That community's here because of these 25 men. Because the spirit of that community are the people on this wall today, and the people that are in this park today. Each of these men paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. No matter how many years go by, they continue to be honored. They continue to have their memories kept alive and their stories told. This is a promise that we make to every single fallen hero who fought to protect our freedoms. I also want to thank the veterans that are here with us today. Your sacrifice, like theirs, sets a standard for service in our city and our country. We can never thank you enough for all that you've done. But we can surely make sure that you have all the support you need when you return home. And that's what we need to stay committed to here in Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. During COVID-19, our Office of Veteran Services, led by Commissioner Santiago, remained and remains fully operational to assist veterans and their families with the benefits that they've earned. We're providing support for caregivers of veterans as well. I just want to pass out to anyone, if you or anyone you know needs help, we want you to contact our office at 617-241-VETS or email the City of Boston. We're especially checking on our most vulnerable veterans to make sure they're safe and doing well. That includes making sure they have access to food. We've teamed up with the Disabled American Veterans and the Massachusetts Military Support Foundation to distribute meal kits to our veterans. We've done it throughout the pandemic. It's a shame that we have to do it, but we do. The next conversation will take place at Franklin Park on October 10th, and we want you to help us spread the word. Before I close, I want to mention that this Friday, September 18th, is National POW MIA Recognition Day. It's a time to honor and recognize our heroes who are prisoners of war and who are still missing in action. Veteran Services is, because of the Times, is hosting a virtual recognition service on that day at noon. You can tune in at Boston Vets Facebook. I just want to end by thanking each and every person that's here today. As I look out, a lot of familiar faces. As Americans, we're united by gratitude for our fallen heroes and our veterans, and the men and women who continue to serve our country. We hold them, and we should hold them in our hearts and prayers today and every day. And thank you, Father Casey, for Mass today. God bless all of you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Mayor Walsh. Our next speaker is Congressman Steven Lynch. Congressman Lynch has been here as a representative of the community, a senator from the community, and now the congressman from the community. But like Senator Lynch, we're fortunate to have representatives who continue to carry on to take care of this community the way other senators and representatives have over the years. So I want to thank Senator Collins, Representative Beal, Councilors Flaherty, Flynn. Thank you for your continued support for this event each and every year. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure now to introduce our Congressman Steven Lynch.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Tom Lyons, for all you do. Reverend Clergy, Father Casey, thank you for your blessing and for the beautiful Mass this morning. Governor Baker, Mayor Walsh, two wonderful supporters of our veterans. The veterans in South Boston and across the Commonwealth and the country couldn't have two better advocates on their behalf, two men who really every single day, regardless of whether that veteran is a World War II veteran or a veteran who has come home last week from Afghanistan, Governor Baker and Mayor Walsh have been right there every step of the way, so we really appreciate their leadership and their service. I also want to thank them for the work that they did up at Marion Manor. You know, in this pandemic, we've relied very heavily on Mayor Walsh, and with Marty Martinez, his health director, sending up extra staff as staff got sick up at Marion Manor. You know, they were understaffed, and the mayor saw to that. And then with the COVID testing, I think at least three times I requested from Governor Baker to have testing done of the whole house up there at Marion Manor. And you've been great, and I really appreciate the work of the Massachusetts National Guard, General Keefe, going up there and testing all the residents and all the staff up there on several occasions. So we are thankful for your leadership in that regard as well. My colleagues in government, Senator Collins, Representative Beal, Councilors Flaherty and Eddie Flynn, Clerk Donovan, and our Suffolk County DA, Rachel Rollins, thank you for your attendance here today. I also want to call out General Joe Dunford and his wife Ellen, who are here in the back there. There he is. As you know, General Joe Dunford also was commanding, the ISAF commander in Afghanistan. He hosted me there several times, as did General McChrystal. Thank you both for your hospitality and your care and protection while I was there. Just two amazing leaders on our behalf, and very deserving of our recognition here today. I also want to thank the Mass National Guard Honor Guard and also the Mass National Guard and the United States Marine Corps Honor Guards and the Boston Police Guard and Greater Boston Firefighters Pipes and Drums, featuring, I might add, Michael Casper, a local musician, and my brother-in-law Kevin Conroy, United States Marine Corps, also there in the back. Thank them for their service as well. It's good to be home, to get together to honor all our veterans here at Medal of Honor Park, and join with Tom Lyons and Vietnam veterans in South Boston to remember, in particular, these 25 sons of South Boston. We join with our guests of honor, General McChrystal and his wife Annie. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. As I said, I had an opportunity to spend some time in Afghanistan with General McChrystal. In one of my visits, we went down to he put me with the 17th Stryker Brigade. We went down from Kandahar down to the border with Pakistan. He gave me one of these Afghan hats to wear, but all I could think of was Mike Dukakis. And I decided not to wear that, but I appreciate the gesture. Also gave me a prayer rug, an Afghan prayer rug, that I have been tempted to use on several occasions. But thank you again for your unparalleled service to our country. These are unusual times, right? These are very difficult times. For the most part, we're unable to see the smiles of our neighbors, unable to engage in a firm handshake or a warm embrace. We gather in the midst of a political season that has revealed sharp divisions within our country, filled even with controversies that involve the proper treatment and respect for those who have served and who have sacrificed all on behalf of our country. But it is exactly at times like this that it is most important to say what South Boston thinks and what South Boston feels, to demonstrate the love and respect that we feel regarding the service and sacrifice of our sons and our brothers. It's been said that there's loyalty in the simple act of remembrance. And make no mistake, that is the spirit in which we gather in South Boston here today. We are here to keep faith with these brave sons of South Boston who rallied to serve their country at Khe Sanh and Pleiku and Hue, just as 216 men from South Boston who served from North Africa to Normandy to Bastogne to Iwo Jima, and whose names are etched in stone on the World War II memorial down at the local Sugar Bowl in South Boston. And the 16 names of the men from South Boston that fought at the Chosin Reservoir and across Korea, and their names etched on the Korean War Memorial on Castle Island, as well as the 83 names from across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts who are remembered at the Fallen Heroes Memorial on South Boston Seaport. I'm very thankful you've come here today to keep faith with these sons of South Boston. It is really, really important, especially today, that you are here. As a matter of full disclosure, on Thursday, this coming Thursday, I'll be returning to Fort Hood, Texas, where my committee will continue our investigation into the 26 homicides, suicides, and disappearances of U.S. soldiers that have occurred at Fort Hood over the past year. Let me assure everyone here that that investigation, my investigation, is not being conducted to disparage the Army or to denigrate military service on behalf of our country. In fact, it's just the opposite. Our investigation is being conducted to keep faith with every son and daughter of the United States who makes the courageous decision to put on the uniform of our military. Like these men at the rail, these brothers in arms, who all made that decision, and our guest of honor, and other veterans who are here today. And our investigation is to keep faith with every parent, every father and mother who supports their son's or daughter's decision to serve. At the very least, we owe these families answers. In closing, may God bless the souls of the men we pray for today, the men and women we pray for today. May He bless our Gold Star families and help us to ease their burden. And may God continue to bless these United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Lynch. The South Boston representatives has asked Councilor Ed Flynn to speak on their behalf. So it's my pleasure to introduce fellow veteran, United States Navy, Councilor Ed Flynn.
Good morning. Thank you, Tom, to General McChrystal and General Dunford and distinguished guests, South Boston Vietnam veterans and their families, South Boston neighbors. As Tom mentioned, on behalf of the South Boston elected officials, Congressman Lynch, Councilor Flaherty, Senator Collins, Representative Beal, Councilor Frank Baker, Clerk Michael Donovan. I'm honored to welcome you to Medal of Honor Park, but before I do that, I want to say thank you to the Parks Department as well for the incredible work that they did on the park, but also the committee that does a tremendous job throughout the year. Thank you, Governor Baker, Mayor Walsh, and Congressman Lynch for your unwavering commitment to veterans and military families throughout the Commonwealth. We come to this park on this beautiful Sunday in September to rededicate this memorial to the South Boston men who left our neighborhood and did not come home. On the back of this memorial is the phrase, "If you forgot my death, then I died in vain." Today, on the 39th anniversary of its dedication, we return to tell you that we did not forget, and we will never forget you. You represented the best of us. You paid the supreme sacrifice for our nation. And you served as an example for generations of South Boston servicemen and women who came after you. To the South Boston Vietnam veterans who are here today, thank you for your heroic service and for your sacrifice. You came home from war, but you never left serving our community or our country. You protected us on the fire department, on the police department. You were tradespeople, veterans advocates, and youth sports coaches. But you also resolved never to forget your fallen brothers. You built this memorial as the first memorial to Vietnam veterans in the nation. You led the way and reminded all of us to never forget them. Because of your efforts, we honor and remember them today. We also honor their families for their many sacrifices as well. May God bless their memory, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
We would now like to call two family members to lay a wreath on behalf of their loved one. I would like Peggy Grover and Donna Turner, if you would step forward, please, and present the wreath on behalf of Donna Turner's husband. Donnie Turner was killed in Vietnam, and Peggy Grover's dad was killed in Vietnam. Thank you. I would like to call the Farrell brothers, Bob and Jack Farrell. If you would, please step forward. Thank you. We have a third wreath. I would like Commissioner Rob Santiago and from the Massachusetts Department of Veterans Services, Paul Moran, to please present this wreath on behalf of all those veterans in the Commonwealth that have died from COVID-19. I was told this morning that we lost over 1,700 veterans from COVID-19. Before I ask you to stand as we read the South Boston Vietnam Honor Roll, I took a little time to read during the past few months, and often we heard that word hero really used an awful lot for a lot of reasons. Today I want to talk about a group of heroes, the men who stand around this fence wearing the red carnation, who served and sacrificed and have never forgotten our friends who never came home. And one hero I want to acknowledge and just tell you a little something about him, because he is one of the 25 that's on the stone. Corporal John C. Calhoun, United States Marine Corps. His citation: for extraordinary heroism while serving as an automatic rifleman with Combined Action Platoon, Hotel 6, 3rd Combined Action Group, 3rd Marine Amphibious Force in the Republic of Vietnam on 7 January 1968. Corporal Calhoun's platoon, while defending an outpost in Tuy Tien province, suddenly came under heavy volume of mortar and rocket fire, followed by an aggressive assault by a numerical superior Viet Cong force. The enemy quickly seized the northern wall of the compound as the Marines and Popular Force soldiers moved to the sandbagged southern wall. During the ensuing firefight, the Marines became dangerously low on ammunition. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Corporal Calhoun unhesitatingly ran across 50 meters of fire-swept terrain to attain the ammunition and deliver it to his comrades. Ignoring the danger around him, he repeatedly crossed that hazardous area, resupplying the defenders until he was mortally wounded. His heroic and timely action inspired all who observed him and were instrumental in repelling the enemy force. By his conspicuous valor, strong initiative, and complete dedication to duty, Corporal Calhoun upheld the highest traditions of the United States Marine Corps and the United States Naval Service. He gallantly gave his life for his country. His family was posthumously presented the Navy Cross, the second highest award given by this country for valor. Ladies and gentlemen, Please stand for the South Boston Honor Roll. Agri Joseph, Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps. Bazzanotti Charles, Lieutenant, United States Army. Borovic Richard J., Specialist 4th Class, United States Army. Calhoun John C., Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps. Cole John Henry, PFC, United States Marine Corps. Daly Paul M., Specialist 6th Class, United States Army. Dalverdi Ronald L., PFC, United States Marine Corps. Desmond Joseph F., PFC, United States Marine Corps. Dunn Joseph F., PFC, United States Marine Corps. Edmund Devin M., Sergeant, United States Army. Grover Gene D., Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. Ubisac Frank C., PFC, United States Army. Eitri Douglas J., Specialist 5th Class, United States Army. Jacobs John P., Corporal, United States Marine Corps. Joyce John G., Corporal, United States Army. Myland Edward W., Sergeant, United States Air Force. O'Toole James, PFC, United States Army. Peterson Burton, Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps. Sheehan Paul H., First Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. Stewart James J., PFC, United States Marine Corps. Stone Edward, PFC, United States Marine Corps. Sullivan Edward M., PFC, United States Marine Corps. Thomas Joseph E., PFC, United States Marine Corps. Turner Donald J., Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps. Wheeler James K., Specialist 6th Class, United States Army. And in the service of their country, Lance Corporal Daniel R. Powers, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Nicholas Buddy Sanchez, United States Air Force. May they rest in peace. Please give a nice round of applause for the Boston firefighters, Greater Boston Firefighters, Pipes and Drums. As we conclude the 39th anniversary, I want to make an announcement as we start thinking about our 40th anniversary next year. I want to thank the governor and the mayor through their efforts. Once again, for the 4th time, the Congressional Medal of Honor Society has selected Boston for its convention, and it'll be during the weekend of our 40th anniversary. So thank you to the governor and the mayor who helped support the effort to bring the society back again, once again. If you forget my death, then I died in vain. These words do not speak about bravery or valor, duty or honor. In fact, they do not speak to the dead or about them. They speak to us, the living. For it is us who have been charged with the awesome responsibility of giving meaning, and yes, even life, to the ultimate sacrifice they made on our behalf. If we, the family, the veterans, the friends, the community they left behind, do not take the time or make the commitment to remember, then their deaths indeed will have been in vain. We must remember this. We must remember their sacrifice and never forget. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. That concludes our service.